Let's go straight into this. This is Donald Trump's economy. In case you guys didn't see Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, talking about some of the dire things that we're approaching, what we're seeing, and that many folks have been predicting even before this guy got into office.
While the labor market appears to be in balance, it is a curious kind of balance that results from a marked slowing in both the supply of and demand for workers. This unusual situation suggests that downside risks to employment are rising. And if those risks materialize, they can do so quickly in the form of sharply higher layoffs and rising unemployment. At the same time, GDP growth has slowed notably in the first half of this year to a pace of 1.2%, roughly half the 2.5% pace in 2024. The decline in growth has largely reflected a slowdown in consumer spending. As with the labor market, some of the slowing in GDP likely reflects slower growth of supply or potential output.
So that's boring finance talk. That basically, as Jerome Powell went through some of the issues going on with our economy, went over the labor market and GDP. The slowing labor market, as we saw, was going on right before Donald Trump fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that gave those stats that he didn't like because there was too much truth behind them. He wasn't done yet because there's multi-layers to the problems going on that we're seeing on the horizon. Here's more.
Turning to inflation, higher tariffs have begun to push up prices in some categories of goods. Estimates based on the latest available data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.6% over the 12 months ending in July. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.9%, above their level of a year ago. Within core, prices of goods increased 1.1% over the past 12 months, a notable shift from the modest decline seen over the course of 2024. The effects of tariffs on consumer prices are now clearly visible. We expect those effects to accumulate over coming months, with high uncertainty about both timing and amounts. The question that matters for monetary policy is whether these price increases are likely to materially raise the risk of an ongoing inflation problem. A reasonable base case is that the effects will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. Of course, one time does not mean all at once. It will continue to take time for tariff increases to work their way through supply chains and distribution networks. Moreover, tariff rates continue to evolve, potentially prolonging the adjustment process.
That's Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, talking about our issues now with also inflation and the effects of tariffs. It's going to be gradual, as we've already seen. So when you see prices for things go up by 30 cents at the store for just a small item, or $1 here, and you notice that you're spending more in normal places where you always would before, the response has been from the folks who are trying to defend these policies that it's only grown by so much. It's only a little bit. But what about in comparison to, but not so much. But in comparison to previous years, it's growing exponentially at a rate at the same period of time. So because he can't fire Jerome Powell, what he's going after is to change all the people that are on the board of governors in the Fed. One of those is Fed Reserve Governor Lisa Cook.
President Trump, you're going to fire Lisa Cook, the Fed governor, over her mortgage
fraud? I'll fire her if she doesn't resign. Yeah, what she did was bad. So I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
The president of the United States just said, "I'm going to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook because what she did was a bad. I'm going to fire her if she doesn't resign." I feel like the reporter should have said, "What did she do?" He doesn't know. He has no idea. He just heard he's supposed to fire her so that he can, replace her. And since she, didn't resign, he says, "You are hereby removed from your position on the board of governors of the Federal Reserve, effective immediately." He has to do this as by cause, and he doesn't know the cause because, as you saw him say there, she did a bad stuff. So again, as dictators work, he doesn't have a reason. He has accusations from someone that's been accusing anyone that has political enemies or anyone that he wants to get rid of for political opportunity to destroy more things as quickly as possible. So I was happy to see this because Lisa Cook responded. She said, "President Trump purported to fire me for cause when no cause exists under the law, and he has no authority to do so. I will not resign. I will continue to carry out my duties to help the American economy as I've been doing so since 2022. Trump's attempt, by this back to the article, Trump's attempt to fire Cook may very well be on a collision course with recent Supreme Court rulings from May, because in that case, the court ruled that the president could remove 2 members from their respective government boards. Here's those 2 boards: the National Labor Relations Board and the Merit Systems Protection Board. In case you guys aren't following, the National Relations Board and the Merit Systems Board are not the Fed. So, however, the court suggested that the president does not have the authority to remove Federal Reserve Board members. Wild how the Supreme Court said that. The Federal Reserve is a uniquely structured quasi-private entity that follows the distinct historical tradition of the first and second banks of the United States. They are just doing whatever they want. So the good news about that is, as I've said, the point here is folks are fighting back. Lisa Cook said, hell no, you can't fire me, and I'm here to continue to do the work and continue to bring actual reality to the perspective for the American people, because that's what I was placed on this board to do. So in stupid form, here comes Howard Lutnick to talk about it. Someone asked him over on CNBC how he feels about this rejection of their latest power grab.
Lisa Cook, governor at the Fed, who has been fired by the president for cause. She says she's not going and that he doesn't have the authority to do such a thing. You're obviously in the administration, close to the president, also understand how the wheels of just the machinery of the government work. Who pays her paycheck, for example? Is that something that has to come directly from the Fed? Is that something that Chair Powell will have to turn off, if you will? Does she have a pass to get into the building as somebody turns on or turns off? And who does that?
So, I don't know the details of who has her paycheck or not. But the issue is a federal government, a governor of the Federal Reserve, literally signs her name and commits mortgage fraud, right? It's alleged that she's committed mortgage fraud, and she says, I'm not going anywhere. Well, the crook always says, I'm not going anywhere. And why would anybody defend that? The real question should be, did she commit mortgage fraud, yes or no? And if you did commit mortgage fraud, please get out of the federal government, get out of the seat of the governor of the Federal Reserve, and go away. You don't deserve to be there if you've committed mortgage fraud.
If the answer is that ultimately Chair Powell is the one responsible for that, and he chooses not to, then the secondary question becomes, does the president try to fire him for cause?
Well, these are all what-if scenarios. The answer is the Department of Justice will go take this on and deal with this.
Howard Lutnick has no idea what he's talking about. He's just said that the president said that that's what he wants, therefore that's what should happen. He even admits it here because he's a dummy. I guess the Department of Justice would have to go, even when asked directly. It would have to be Jerome Powell to rid her of her position, not the president, not you, and not the corrupt Department of Justice now run by the president. None of those folks. That's why he's trying to go in this step, because he already threatened Jerome Powell 85 times. That's how he operates. But Howard Lutnick is just talking about how, hey, he mentioned it. This is what he said. She signed her name and allegedly commits mortgage fraud. And he said, if you did that, did she do it? Or are you asking if she did? It's weird how this whole thing that Stephen Miller said months ago he's looking to get rid of in this country, which I guess they've gotten to that point of, is this due process thing, where you have to adjudicate whether or not your accusations against your political enemies are actually true or not. The things that happened against Donald Trump that were adjudicated through multiple courts and found him guilty of all of those things, but they still said that was fake news. But those 34 felony counts still hold, but they can just accuse anybody of anything and say, get off the board because Donald Trump doesn't want you there. I'm going to show you why Donald Trump doesn't want her there.
Her term officially began in 2022 in May, and she was confirmed for a full 14-year term that extends to 2038. She has held roles at the Treasury as part of the Council on Foreign Relations. She was a National Research Fellow at Hoover Stanford Institute. She's advised the governments of Nigeria and Rwanda on finance and development. She is qualified for the role, which is why she was confirmed.
So let's set the table with that background of the member of the board who has a 13-year term, if you consider this year almost done. That's what Trump ultimately wants, because whoever he gets to replace her with will serve out the rest of her term and have that whole time.
And that's the key. Michael Steele then pointed out she's at the beginning of her 14-year term. Donald Trump says, I can appoint some lackey to kiss my ass like Howard Lutnick does for the next 13 years. This will be wonderful. Let me go after her. And it doesn't hurt that she's extremely qualified. She's a black woman who he just said yesterday, all the black women just love me. They've been wanting me to come to Chicago for a while, except for the fact 98% of black women in this country give him so many middle fingers, he doesn't know what to do with them. So, but still, he targets them at any chance that he gets. And this is just another one. But she's in a perfect position for him to take over and have some idiot come in for 13 years and do his bidding, regardless of the destruction that he unleashes on the country.